Welcome to Ryan's Running Reviews in partnership with Roadrunner Sports, and today we're taking a look at a brand new Super Race Day shoe from TYR. Yes, the brand that's really well known for making swimsuits for high-level athletes. They decided to get into the running shoe space, and honestly, for this being their first racing shoe, I am quite impressed. So let's run with that. Before we get started, I do want to say these shoes were provided to me by Roadrunner Sports. However, no one had a chance to preview this video, and this file synopsis is my own. I'd also like to say please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing. Here we go. This is the Valkyrie Elite Carbon from TYR. It's their top tier Super Race Day shoe intended for the half or full marathon. We have the full length carbon fiber plate, the super foam, and the shoe itself is incredibly light. And I think TYR just did the basics really well. I'm surprised more companies don't kind of go in this direction or just kind of use the materials you would expect in a racing shoe. You just want a light shoe with a good foam and a carbon fiber plate, and I think that's what they did here, so let's get into the details. Now, because this is a Super Race Day shoe, it does have that premium price tag of $250. However, it only comes in at 7.8 ounces, which is pretty good. Now, it's not the lightest racing shoe out there, but 7.8 ounces is very respectable for this particular category. I'm also very happy to see they went all the way to the limit on the stack height. We have 39.5 in the heel and 33.5 in the forefoot for a 6mm heel to toe drop, giving us a bit more foam in the forefoot, which I do appreciate. I think that helps out forefoot runners a bit more as well. Moving on to the upper, TYR is calling this Hyperweave. It's super thin. You can practically see directly into the shoe, making the breathability a 10 out of 10. There are a ton of plastic overlays here to give this thin Hyperweave material some structure, a large one around the top of the toe box, and there is a midfoot cage of sorts that's fused directly to the material to give some additional structure as well. And then you have a large TYR branding along the lateral side. Now, as far as the fit goes, I thought it was true to size, and unlike some racing shoes, you do have a rather wide toe box. There's a decent amount of volume here, which for me, I do appreciate. I like that wiggle room, helps my toes splay out, but I do know some people prefer a more snug fit on their racing shoe. So it depends on what you're looking for. If you like a little bit more volume, I think you'll love this, but if you'd like that snug race day fit, you might want to go with a different option. The tongue is gusseted and incredibly thin, with one minor exception. As you get towards the top, they did double over the fabric to give you a little bit of extra padding there. It's not much, just more than the rest of the tongue. Feels very much like a racing tongue experience, and I think works in this implementation. The laces remind me of what Brooks does on their racing shoes or their tempo trainers. It has some texture to it to help them stay tied, and I didn't have any issue with the laces themselves, so I think maybe it does help just a bit. And then if we go back towards the heel counter, this was my one minor gripe. It was okay. It got the job done. I didn't absolutely love it. There's not much structure to it there. There's a large kind of plastic or synthetic overlay that gives it some structure. It has a light amount of padding, but I do wish, especially because the upper has a lot of room to it, the heel counter maybe had a bit more structure. And I think that would give the lockdown just a better feeling in general. It was good, not great. I think that's just the one drawback I really do have with the shoe. I thought the lockdown could just be slightly better. When you do have a lot of room to the upper, I do prefer a more strict or rigid heel counter, and this just feels fairly or just very flexible overall. Moving on to the midsole, I am very happy to see TYR went with a beaded P-backs setup. They're calling it Launch PX. Kind of looks similar to what Saucony does on their Endorphin Pro series, and after trying this shoe, it almost kind of feels like a firmer or more dense version of the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. It's also a bit more stable as well in my mind because the midsole isn't as soft. Of course, you have that full-length carbon fiber plate which stiffens and stabilizes things. I'll put a picture on the screen so you can see exactly where it is within the midsole. And because this is a carbon shoe, I feel like it's almost like you have to put the little cutout window in the bottom to show you have that carbon fiber plate. Nothing too crazy going on with the outsole, kind of what we expect from a racing shoe, a fairly smooth traction pattern, and a solid amount of rubber coverage. Now, one thing I do want to point out is if you go with the black colorway, it's basically painted over on the midsole. So once you start kind of scraping up the midsole foam, you'll have some white spots kind of start to poke through, which may not be an issue if you go with the white colorway. So just be aware of that. It's not a major issue, doesn't have any impact on performance. It's more just an aesthetic thing, but I do want to make that known. Overall, I am genuinely impressed with TYR's first ever Super Race Day shoe. The Valkyrie Elite Carbon does the fundamentals well. Is it the most exciting or unique racing shoe? I don't think so, but again, the fundamentals are there. P-backs midsole, lightweight shoe, stiff and aggressive carbon fiber plate. You put that all together and you have a solid racing option. Now, like I talked about before, I do think this is a firmer implementation of P-backs, not as soft like we see with Power Run PB and Saucony, but I think that kind of gives you some unique advantages and disadvantages. Disadvantages, maybe not as soft and squishy, which some people may really enjoy on their running shoes, but because it's a slightly firmer version, it is going to be more stable. Still delivers a nice level of energy return. I think it really comes alive when you start to push the pace quite a bit. You take advantage of having the slightly lower 6mm drop and the fact that you do have a very aggressive rocker geometry. So if you're someone who likes a slightly more stable yet still responsive midsole with plenty of room to the upper, I think this works quite well. The one Achilles heel, pun intended, is the heel section. I do wish it was a bit more stiff. When you have this much room to the upper, I do prefer having a heel counter with more structure to it. That was also my complaint with the New Balance SC Elite. Same thing there, ton of room with the upper, but the heel counter was good, just not as great as I was hoping for, and that is kind of the case here as well. So let me know in the comments, what do you think of TYR getting into the running shoe space, and would you give them a chance? I'd love to hear from you. I'm Ryan from Ryan's Running Reviews, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.